So you want to really get to grips with an amazing story fast. Well, you're in the right place.
Yeah, today we're diving deep into Apple's history. We've got some great analyses, historical stuff, reflections on their impact.
Our mission here is to pull out the really key insights from how Apple grew.
Exactly, from, the garage right up to where they are now. There are some surprising bits, definitely.
And importantly for listeners, some lessons you can actually use.
Right. It's not just a history lesson. It's about finding that spark, that inspiration for what you're doing.
Okay, so how are we going to tackle this huge story?
Well, we'll look at the key periods, unpack their strategies, and pinpoint those core principles you can apply.
That's good, son. Let's kick things off right at the start. April 1st, 1976. Picture it. A garage, Los Altos, California.
That's the spot. And the people, Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, and Ronald Wayne.
The founding trio. So what was the initial spark?
Well, Wozniak, he was the engineering genius, right? He dreamed of building his own computer, inspired by the Altair 8800.
And Jobs brought the vision, the idea of making computing accessible.
Precisely, that entrepreneurial drive. They met at the Homebrew Computer Club, and that's really where it all clicked.
And the early commitment,
Yeah.
it was intense.
Well, yeah. Jobs sold his VW minibus, Wozniak his HP calculator. That's serious personal sacrifice to get things going,
Really shows their belief from day one.
doesn't it? And their first product, the Apple I Wozniak, designed and built it by hand.
Pretty basic though, right? Just the motherboard?
Essentially, yeah. Sold for $666.66, kind of a quirky price. Users had to bring their own monitor, keyboard, power supply.
The whole setup, they sold about 200.
Around that, yeah. A modest start, but crucial, foundational.
And Ronald Wayne, people sometimes forget him.
Right. He did the initial admin, the partnership agreement, the first logo, even the Apple I manual.
But he got nervous about the financial risk.
Extremely. He pulled out really fast, sold his 10% stake for just $800.
Wow. That really highlights how shaky things were financially and, the different levels of risk tolerance.
Absolutely. That early vulnerability is key. But then things moved quickly. January 3rd, 1977, Apple Computer Inc. was officially incorporated.
And Mike Markula came in, the former Intel guy.
Yes, and that was huge. He brought not just cash, but vital business experience. It shows how critical those early investors can be, the ones with know-how.
So looking back at that garage era, what's the big takeaway?
For me, it's that idea of dare to start small, but think big, you know?
Yeah, and the power of complementary skills. Jobs' vision was his engineering.
Exactly. Plus just sheer persistence against those early hurdles.
Okay, moving on. 1977, the Apple II arrives. That felt like a real breakthrough.
It really was. Color graphics, a plastic case. It looked more like a finished product.
And it became one of the first big mass-market microcomputers, right? Huge commercial success.
Definitely. And it wasn't just for hobbyists anymore.
Right. VisiCalc, the spreadsheet software. That
Yeah.
pushed it into businesses.
Totally. It shows how vital user-friendly design is and how software can just make the hardware popular.
And the color. That was a big differentiator back then.
A massive one. Then 1980, Apple goes public.
Big IPO. Generated a lot of capital, made employee millionaires.
Yeah, a $1.8 billion valuation right off the
Yeah.
bat. But that brings new pressures, doesn't it, being a public company?
Always does. And it wasn't all smooth sailing. The Apple, that was a bit of a disaster, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. Launched in 1980, plagued by design flaws. A commercial failure, really.
And tension started showing between Jobs and Wozniak about the company's direction.
Wozniak wasn't really interested in the day-to-day management side of things, and he stepped back in '83.
It shows that early success isn't, guaranteed forever. Internal stuff can trip you up.
Right. Founder disagreements, design mistakes, and Jobs' leadership style, described as visionary, passionate.
But also combative.
Yeah.
Caused friction.
Yeah, that's the word often used. Definitely created some waves within the team.
Which brings us to the Macintosh era, 1984. But first, Lisa in '83.
Right. Lisa was technically first with the graphical user interface, the GUI, but it was super expensive.
So the Mac was the one that really broke through commercially. The all-in-one with the GUI and mouse.
Exactly. That GUI and mouse combo, it just changed everything. Made computers intuitive, accessible.
Instead of typing commands, you could just point and click. Revolutionary for the time.
Completely. And that 1984 Super Bowl ad, talk about bold marketing.
Iconic.
Yeah.
It really hammered home that the Mac was something fundamentally different, a shift in how humans interact with computers.
But those internal tensions we talked about, They didn't go away.
No, the conflict between Jobs and CEO John Sculley, especially over Mac sales.
It kept building. And ultimately, it led to Jobs being forced out in 1985.
Crazy to think about, the founder being pushed out of his own company.
It really underscores how vital leadership alignment and, well, board dynamics are, even for founders.
So what happened after Jobs left? That period from 85 to 97.
It was tough for Apple. Leadership changes, no clear direction.
And they lost a lot of ground to the Wintel machines, right? Windows on Intel PCs.
Massively. Market share plummeted. They had some unsuccessful products, too, like the Newton Message Pad.
The early PDA. Ahead of its time, maybe, but didn't quite work out.
Right. And by 1997, Apple was genuinely close to bankruptcy.
It really shows how much that strong, visionary leadership matters, especially in such a competitive market.
Absolutely. Without it, they started to decline.
But then, the comeback story starts. 1996, Apple buys NXT.
Yes, the company Jobs founded after leaving Apple, the main goal was actually to get NXT's software to fix Apple's own OS issues.
And bringing NXT in meant bringing Jobs back.
Exactly. He became interim CEO in 97, then permanent CEO in 2000, and that kicked off this incredible turnaround, a renaissance, really.
What were his first moves?
Pretty radical, actually. He immediately simplified the product line drastically, just focused on a few core things.
Cut out the clutter?
Right. Revamped distribution, marketing, really doubled down on the brand values.
And wasn't there that surprising investment from Microsoft?
Yeah, $150 million. From their biggest rival. That helped stabilize things, fostered this new environment for innovation.
And then came the iconic products.
Oh, yeah. This era was defined by them. The iMac in 98 totally changed Apple's image with that colorful design.
It made computers look fun again.
Then the iPod in 2001 revolutionized music.
Put 1,000 songs in your pocket. I remember that line.
Changed everything. Then iPhone, 2007. Entered the mobile market and just took over. Ushered in the smartphone era as we know it.
Truly transformative. And the iPad in 2010.
Created a whole new category, didn't it? The tablet computer.
So that period really highlights Jobs' genius, right? Identifying needs, creating these groundbreaking products.
Absolutely. And that strategy of integrating hardware, software, and services became so distinctively Apple.
What's the lesson there? Refocus, simplify, then amplify.
I think that's perfect. That power of focus cutting, 70% of the products?
It's incredible discipline.
Simplifying to excel, and the courage, really, to make those hard calls.
Then, sadly, 2011, Jobs steps down due to health reasons.
Yeah, and he passed away later that year. Tim Cook took the reins as CEO.
A huge transition. Must have been immense pressure.
For sure. But it also showed the importance of having a solid succession plan ready.
And under Cook, Apple hasn't stood still.
Not at all. Continued innovation, new categories like the Apple Watch in 2015, AirPods in 2016.
AirPods became ubiquitous, didn't they?
They really did. And huge growth in services. Apple Music, iCloud, Apple TV plus Siflix. That's become a massive part of their business.
Plus the move to Apple Silicon for Macs, starting around 2020, designing their own chips.
A major strategic shift. Allows for that tighter integration, better performance, efficiency.
And financially, Cook's era has seen incredible growth.
Phenomenal. Hitting $1 trillion, then $2 trillion, even $3 trillion market cap milestones. It's staggering.
And a bigger focus on things like sustainability and privacy, too.
Definitely. Those have become much more prominent themes under Cook. It shows they can maintain momentum, adapt, expand the ecosystem.
While trying to stay true to that core user experience and design focus.
Exactly. And reflecting, perhaps, those evolving societal expectations around broader values.
But it's not all plain sailing now, is it? AI seems to be a challenge.
Yeah, that's emerging as a big one. Increased competition from Google, Microsoft. They seem to be ahead in some ways.
There have been reports of delays. There's some criticism about Apple integrating AI features.
There have. It's a reminder that even giants like Apple face new hurdles. Technology doesn't stand still.
And AI is moving so fast, it could be a vulnerability if they don't keep pace.
It certainly could. So maybe the lesson from this recent era is about innovating in unexpected places, pushing boundaries.
And the ecosystem is still key, right? That integration.
Absolutely. Continuous, iterative innovation. And it shows that long-term success needs systems, a great team, not just one person.
Embodying that long-term vision while adapting day to day.
That's the balancing act.
Okay, let's try and pull together some of those core strategies, the principles behind Apple's success over the decades.
Right. First off, has to be the power of vision, that long-term thinking.
Jobs' almost uncanny ability to see what people wanted before they knew it themselves.
Yeah, envisioning those revolutionary products. And Cook seems to have continued that focus on the long game, innovation, expansion.
There's that Jobs quote, "If you are working on something exciting that you really care about, you don't need to be pushed. The vision pulls you."
Great quote. And building on that vision is the relentless pursuit of excellence, that attention to detail.
Jobs' obsession with perfection, down to the tiniest detail of design and function.
Quality over quantity. He said, one home run is much better than two doubles.
Love that. Then there's simplicity, minimalism,
Such a core Apple trait. The clean look, the intuitive interfaces, making things user-friendly.
focusing on the essentials, cutting the clutter.
Right. Jobs also said, simple can be harder than complex. You have to work hard to get your thinking clean to make it simple. Which is so true.
It really is. And tied to that is brand management, customer experience. That's paramount for them.
Absolutely. They built such a strong brand identity, that emotional connection, and they focus on the whole experience, product, retail, support.
Jobs' advice: get closer than ever to your customers. So close that you tell them what they need well before they realize it themselves.
That's foresight. Then there's strategy for innovation and disruption.
They aren't always first, are they? But they often enter with something more refined, maybe better.
Often, yeah. Or they create entirely new categories, new ecosystems.
Like Jobs said, innovation distinguishes between a leader and a follower.
Couldn't put it better. And finally, that integration of hardware and software, it's fundamental.
Controlling the whole stack, so to speak. For optimized performance, that seamless user experience.
It allows for that fluid, coherent feel across their devices and services.
Okay, so wrapping up, what are the big lessons we can take away from all this?
Well, we've hit on them. Long-term vision, chasing excellence, the power of simplicity, focusing on brand and experience, strategic innovation.
How can listeners maybe apply some of this?
Good question. Maybe cultivate your own clear vision. Think long-term about your goals.
Embrace discipline, aim for excellence, pay attention to the details in what you do.
Right. Adopt maybe a minimalist approach.
Mm.
What can you cut out? What's non-essential?
Build your personal brand, focus on the user experience of your interactions.
And foster that culture of innovation for yourself. Be curious, experiment, question how things are done.
And don't forget resilience. Apple had major crises. Learning from failure, bouncing back,
Yeah.
that's huge.
Definitely. And that whole think different idea, the value in challenging norms going against the grain.
So maybe a final thought for everyone listening.
Yeah, think about that Jobs quote again. Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life.
Powerful. How can you apply clarity, focus, excellence to pursue your own vision with passion?
Exactly. What non-essentials could you eliminate to really amplify what matters most to you, just like Apple did with its products?
It's more than just tech, isn't it? It's a philosophy.
It really is. Applicable to almost anything.
And if folks want to dig even deeper, there are tons of resources out there.
Oh, yeah. Great books like the Walter Isaacson biography of Jobs, documentaries, other deep dives.
Plenty to explore if this has sparked your interest. It's a story packed with lessons.